All right, folks, we have a live stream. We have folks jumping in. And I'm going to share my screen and get us kicked off once my YouTube link. There we go. Okay, beautiful. So give me a moment and I will share my deck here. This one. Beautiful. Okay, welcome to October, everybody. It is lovely to see you all here. Feel free to come off come on to video and say hi, give us a wave, give us a smile, show us your beautiful faces. It is lovely to see everybody here for another month. And I want to get right to things because we had a couple of technical challenges early on. Totally my fault. Zoom, despite using it for 2 years, many times a day, I still have mysteries to solve. But I want to introduce our wonderful sponsor. So we are lucky to be sponsored by CloudBees. I'm sure you've heard of them. Go check them out. They make wonderful things, and they would love to be a part of your DevOps journey. JFrog, longtime sponsor of the meetup, very good friends of ours, been very generous in their support, and we continue to be lucky to have them. We also have, oh, how did I lose? BMC. We just had BMC join as a sponsor. This is their first month. So go check them out. They're big in the value stream space. They're looking at end-to-end observability, management, and orchestration. And so also very, very happy to have them aboard, and hope to have them along for the journey for the long haul. So welcome to BMC. It's always wonderful. I think we're full of spots. I think we've got our 3 sponsors now that who can keep us rolling for a while, which is great. Again, I'm going to keep plugging my little ebook here because it is free, and I love hearing feedback about it. I love hearing people, making use of it, referencing it, sharing it with their teams. Go check it out. It is totally free. I guarantee you, it's packed with goodness. And also news about flow engineering. I just presented at the DevOps Enterprise Summit today, and it seemed like it had great reception. Very pleased with things people are talking about around it. Again, that book is coming out from IT Revolution next year. And between now and then, you can follow along with the book and everything happening there at inside-out.work, which I'll post in the chat. That's a newsletter that's going to come out every 2 weeks as Andrew and I write the book for IT Revolution that's coming out next fall. So introducing next month, before we kick over to PJ, we're going to be looking at CI/CD and build pipelines, one of my favorite topics, my introduction to DevOps, actually, back in the day. And so sign up for that. I promise limited Zoom issues. I don't know if I can guarantee 0 Zoom issues, but we'll do our best, and hopefully see you there. With that, I'm going to hand over the reins to PJ, longtime friend of DevOps Toronto. I'm a huge fan of this man. He has been plugged into what really matters in DevOps and community, and what is really behind everything that we're doing when we bring together people with different perspectives, people with different incentives, different jobs, in order to drive better outcomes. And so I always love hearing what he has to say, and very, very pleased to have him back. Take it away, PJ.
Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate that. I'm blushing. I don't know if anybody could tell because I'm wearing a red shirt, but I'm definitely blushing. So let me get my slide deck up. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about ChatOps when it matters. This is comms and incident response. So If you're not here for that talk, then you're not here for the right talk. But you can hang out anyway. So my name is PJ Haggerty. I work at a company called Mattermost. We are what is now being called a communication platform with a focus on developers, especially open source developers. But it's a collaboration platform. We use different things, chat, Kanban style project management, all of this behind a firewall, on-prem, in the cloud, however you want to do it. It's all open source, so you can add what you want and build it the way you want to. There, I do a podcast called What Matters, where we talk about various different things. My job is to be a developer advocate. And what that means is I get to go to a bunch of different communities and talk to people about the things that they find interesting and kind of extrapolate about that, write some content, do talks. It used to be that I got to leave this room to do talks. That's only slowly coming back. I miss Toronto so much. So I'm so glad when Steve and Sebastian reached out and they were like, hey, do you want to talk? I was like, yes, I do. And I was kind of hoping I could go up there, but it didn't really happen, but that's okay. So let's get started. One of the things that I like to do when I do talks is I like to start with definitions. This way we can ensure that we're all kind of speaking the same language. We're all on the same page. We all understand what we're talking about. Even though we have a lot of ideas about the things that go into DevOps and ChatOps and various other things that we're going to talk about, it's good that we all have the same definition. So I'm going to start with that. So I'll start with ChatOps. So this is actually a term that was coined at GitHub a long time ago. I won't ask for a show of hands because that's impossible. I can't see any of you. But I will say, I don't know how many people are familiar with this logo, but this is Hubbot or Hubbot, depending on who you talk to. And the idea behind Hubbot was to get messages to go into a chat interface anytime something changed in a GitHub repo. So it was a really interesting way. Like the idea was managing your system through a chat interface. So you didn't have to always go back to GitHub to see what was going on. You could get the updates directly in your chat interface that you're already working with. At the time, it was a chat interface called Campfire. I don't know if a lot of people remember Campfire, but Hubbot could also work in IRC. So that's like how far back we're going. Some of us remember before IRC, but I'm not going to get into the whole like evolution of chat platforms. That's a different talk. But the idea here is it was a way of thinking and working that this wasn't a tool or a framework. It was just a simple protocol to let me know where everything's done all in one place. So when we talk about ChatOps, it's usually done through bots, but there's a lot of other ways. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into the talk. The next thing we have to define is DevOps. So I'm going to use my definition voice here. According to the strict definition of DevOps, it is a concatenation of development and operations, a method that emphasizes collaboration between the entire spectrum of professionals involved in creation, development, and deployment of software. That sounds great. And we all know this definition, but I think we also know it's a bit utopian, really, right? Like today, we think of DevOps as a set of behaviors and tools that allow us a team to function. And here I like to say function. We don't strive for perfection. DevOps does not strive for perfection. At least in my opinion, it does not. The idea is to get a team to function at the best of its ability. That doesn't always mean perfect. This idea differs a little bit from the agile mindset. Agile focuses on the ability to move a project along a flexible timeline, which can be subject to change depending on feedback. As a result, Agile is small, fast, and open to change, but it's mostly focused on the software development cycle. DevOps tries to bring everything together, development, ops, and QA, which doesn't fit into the word DevOps too conveniently because Dev qua ops or DevOps qua just didn't really work out. So they went with DevOps. But now we have a definition for it. The other thing I want to define is integration. And an integration is a piece of code that we use to connect different pieces of our software together, or that we use to communicate states between functions of different applications. This can come in a lot of different forms. The original definition of DevOps was focused on bots. So you could build a bot that would basically say, hey, I did a thing, and the webhook or API or whatever would pick that up and say, yes, I got it, and put it into the chat. Now we can also use slash commands, webhooks, and there's lots of different features that we build to integrate various application workflows together. APIs obviously being the biggest one. APIs are a way for different pieces of software to talk to other pieces of software. And that's generally where a lot of our integrations come from. The other thing that we have to deal with is the definition of incident response. So the idea behind this is to be ready. Incident management. Not ready for anything, because that's a very unrealistic expectation. We said this before, the idea of perfection is the enemy of done. Ready for everything is the enemy of having realistic expectations for when the poop hits the fan. The idea is we want to be ready to respond when the unexpected inevitably happens, and it will happen. DevOps teams often create incident playbooks in order to ensure that they're ready as possible to handle situations when they arise. So incident response is all about preparedness. And this is where the talk really takes off, folks. This is where it's really going to happen. This is the last definition. Looking at the importance of communication when everything goes sideways, when the least expected thing, and we'll get a little bit about why least expected is a loaded term, but when the least expected thing happens, what you can do to respond. So let's start with the basics, communication. And there's some different pieces that go into communication. So let's talk about that. The first piece we always have is observability. So if you're an SRE or you're just on a DevOps team where part of your job is to watch the system at large, you understand kind of what observability is. So definition voice again. So Rudolf Kalman coined this phrase in the early 20th century. Observability is a measure of how well internal states of a system can be inferred from knowledge of its external outputs. Okay, interesting definition. Clearly, this is a definition developed from an understanding of like steam locomotive engines or engineering complex machines in general, where moving parts were internal and their dynamics could only be monitored via extrapolation. So most of us understand in a very basic way how a car operates. Would you say that you can observe the operation of a car? Yeah, you kind of can. You could say you have observability on your car. I press the gas, the car goes. That makes sense. You're extrapolating that the machine is functioning the way that it should based on the output that you're getting. But do you actually know how pistons work? And maybe some of you do. I'm just using this as an example. Do you know how pistons work? Do you know how gas combusts? Do you understand the chemical reaction that goes on, the fires that are actually going? You're driving a giant thing that's on fire and you're pouring more gasoline into that fire. That's how a car works. You're extrapolating. That's exactly how it should work, though it's moving. It's a little bit different than what we have now. That definition, the complex engine definition was good, but we can kind of look more into things. Monitoring methods, tools, they're now more sophisticated and definitely more widely adopted to handle increasingly distributed and complex systems. So it's easier to observe code. It's easier to observe how that code works through tests. It's easier to extrapolate the behavior of a server that's going to tell you how it's feeling, tell you what it's doing. And all of that's interesting, but observability is still important because all bets are off once your code hits the real world. That's where everything changes. Another big piece of the communication puzzle is information. So you'll hear a lot of times people say things like live system observability and, real-time observability. Those are all great. But here, the whole idea behind them is it's data-driven. You're going to get a lot of data pushed at you. It's an iterative process for teams to improve their overall health and resiliency of their system if they can observe a thing and make changes to it based on the data. But I have an argument here. And here's my argument. You can't actually do things based on data. You can do things based on information. Data is raw. If I said to you, hey, listen, your database instance is getting 120 million hits per minute. That's a piece of data. That's definitely a data point. But what does that mean? Well, since your instance can only handle 100 million hits per minute, 120 million hits per minute is going to be way too overwhelming and you're going to crash your system. That's information you can act on. That's the difference between information and data. So watch out for these words when people say, oh, well, we can get our ChatOps up so that we're getting data. You don't want data, you want information. Information can be communicated. So mitigating this issue of live system observability and getting data is at the top of the heap for every modern company and organization developing an application. Whether it's a web application, a mobile application, a combination, fintech, funtech, doesn't really matter what you're doing. Having information and reacting to it is what's the key. Successful tools need to give developers, DevOps engineers, DevOps practitioners, security operations systems administrators, and everyone else insight into how systems function in real time. And again, don't get caught up on real time. Nothing happens in real time. They must be able to scale linearly and efficiently and store data and compose that data into information so that users aren't wasting their time and their compute resources. Am I right? I think we all agree on that here. The importance of tightly coupled integrations with all this can't be stressed enough. We as humans, we love a good integration. We prefer that things work together socially. We have an understanding of how things work together because this is how humans work. Even if you say, oh man, I'm an introvert and I like to stay in my house and not talk to people. That's true. You probably sit somewhere on a spectrum between introvert and extrovert. But if you're really thinking about it, what you really do is you integrate with people in a different way. Maybe you don't communicate directly, but you talk through email or text or some sort of asynchronous communication platform. We are social beings. Even if we don't want to be physically social, we are still social beings and we need to communicate with other people. Integrations are just like that. We build applications to mimic the way that humans behave. The interesting part here is the DevOps philosophy is kind of all about communication. So we know the tools here. There's Mattermost, there's Slack, there's IRC. We use these things to keep all of the parts moving. So when it comes to integrating our incident response teams, we want everything in one place. It just makes sense to integrate. And again, we want to communicate like other people. Hey, I need this. Hey, I have this. This is how it goes. I'll also toss in the idea of chaos engineering because chaos engineering is always, I get to use this fun gift. That's the main reason why I talk about chaos engineering. But seriously, so this is a concept that jars the minds of a lot of people when they talk about observability and incident response and DevOps culture is this idea of chaos engineering. Are we really going to ditch our prod servers at peak times? Are we going to truly drop databases randomly? And the answer is, yeah, that's how chaos engineering works. Not everybody's comfortable with this, but it is a functional way of doing things. And I could tell the story of Netflix and how on a Friday night, they dropped half their production servers and had no problems because their systems were so resilient. They actually learned and saved money from it. This is a concept. It seems scary, but sometimes making your systems more resilient is the key to success with your end users. That's what they want to see. So putting it all together, it makes it much easier to stay focused on resolving an issue if you have a plan, if you know how to communicate that plan, and if all of your systems are working together to solve that plan. Integrations create automated feeds to bring information, not data, from systems across your workflow together all in one place. Usually a central chat platform that keeps everybody on the team on the same page. Creating a playbook, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, based on some of the chaos engineering experiments you've done, allows you to be prepared for the worst. Prepared, not for everything, but for the worst. Keeping a decent observability stack together, add that to your great communication setup, and your ChatOps work for you, your team, and your organization to be successful. So whether it's the ad hoc response team for an incident or there's dedicated SRE team, that doesn't really matter. Having it all in one place and being able to communicate it is really what's going to lead to success. So let's talk about some best practices when it starts with when we talk about ChatOps and integrations and incident response. So starting with ChatOps, we want to start small. When it comes to integrating ChatOps into our DevOps workflow, we always want to start small. We want to automate one task. Automation is a big thing. This is DevOps. We love to automate all the things all the time. Automate ourselves out of jobs. Impossible. For anybody who saw that story a couple weeks ago about the Tesla that kind of ran over some people in a crosswalk, I don't think AI is doing too well just yet. We're pretty good on our jobs. We're totally safe. But the idea behind automation here is find a simple task, preferably something that is not part of a critical system. Maybe just like a little quick alert, something that says, hey, I'm going to tell you once per hour that what the level of the CPU flop is. If it's good, if it's bad, doesn't matter. I'm just going to tell you once an hour, but automate that task so you don't have to look. Cool. And it's going to appear in your chat channel. Awesome. So it'll take some time to learn what's working and what's not. So you want to ensure you're building bots and integrations that function before you jump into building something that's going to really be important or that your company depends on. Stay in your comfort zone. Start there. If you're a pure DevOps engineer and have been focused on the functioning of backend systems for quite a while, don't expect to just start coding integrations because you know the domain. This is controversial, but here we go. You're going to need to learn some coding skills, and you're going to have to learn how to build the integrations first. That said, you know your systems. So as you get started in this beautiful world of DevOps, you could probably partner with someone and stay within the parameters of your knowledge. So you're in your comfort zone. You get a coder who's in their comfort zone. You work together to build an integration or an automation that's going to help. And you both learn along the way. This is the greatest thing that works. I mean, it's pair programming, but it's DevOps pair programming, which makes it better for everyone. So when you kick things off, stay where you're most comfortable. Again, we love automating tasks. It's the best part of DevOps. Who doesn't love it? Automating tasks on demand means as we get comfortable, we see the value in the integration and the ChatOps functionality that we're building, we can start to look at ChatOps when new things arrive. So you've decided, your whole company's decided like the Elk stack's not working. They changed the open source license. What an uncomfortable thing for everyone. That kind of sucks. So we're going to get this new monitoring software, Splunk, Humio, whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. We're getting this new monitoring software and we're going to bring it in. Oh, but hey, as an SRE or a DevOps engineer who likes to automate things and keep this whole ChatOps incident response thing going, I would love to automate the connection between these two services. So we know when new things come in, we can actually start templating how our integrations are built and learn from the integrations we've already built and possibly improve some of those older integrations as these new integrations become available. So that's what we mean by on demand. As new information comes in, we'll learn new and better ways to integrate our systems together. When we were building the incident response manager at Mattermost, which is now called Playbooks because marketing, we had some folks in beta who realized that the integration went far beyond the DevOps teams. It was great for a lot of people as a stand-up thing or asynchronous tasks their team need to do. We even have one person using Playbooks to onboard people that are new. Like that's the kind of thing. But it was things like building the integration and building the automation that made it possible to get buy-in from teams with no heavy lifting and allowed managers to keep track of their activities. So this is a good way to also promote your DevOps team and help people to understand that communications is not just a DevOps issue. It's an everyone issue. But if you get everyone on board, it makes it a lot easier. And I'll get more into that as we start talking about the playbooks. Finally, without a guide, let's not make this too controversial. ChatOps isn't worth the code it's written in. It doesn't matter. You need to build a playbook. Incident response, incident collaboration is where everything will come together. You'll either hit the wall or hit a homer, but you'll figure it out. Sometimes you have to take baby steps and fall a little bit along the way. Either way, you will learn and you will log what was successful and what wasn't. You will learn through the whole process. This learning can't be understated. It's not an end all be all. It doesn't stop. If you continue to learn, you continue to build better things. So have a playbook. It's the only way to ensure success to the highest degree possible. So let's talk a little bit about incident collaboration. I've talked about all the pieces. So incident collaboration, best practices, playbooks. A lot of this involves developer tool integration with things like OpsGenie or Jira, and it's all about the incident lifecycle management. So you start creating playbooks, you start looking at the general incidents that you understand. You work on building a team and you integrate that with your ChatOps platform because everybody's remote now, so everybody has one. Incidents such as service outages, cyber attacks, all of these require collaborative response that involves multiple teams. So this is where that whole bringing people into building playbooks outside of DevOps comes in. They're familiar with the idea, but you're also going to need layers of stakeholders. A lot of these are going to be time-sensitive events and could cost thousands of dollars for every minute they remain unresolved. Just ask Mark Zuckerberg. Security incidents that aren't immediately resolved could jeopardize customer trust. So you want to have a playbook to mitigate these things as quickly as possible. With a playbook for any incident, and you want to have multiple because lots of different incidents require different responses. But with a playbook, we can work to resolve any incident and worry less about logistics because everything's arranged beforehand. The team knows what to do. You know that it's important to, I should say, you don't know, maybe you don't know, but it's important to note that playbooks need to be kept up to date. Just because you wrote it once doesn't mean that it works or it's a good idea. The idea behind incident collaboration and playbooks is to be ready. Again, can't stress this enough. Not ready for anything because that is an unrealistic expectation, but ready to respond when the unexpected inevitably occurs. DevOps teams often create incident playbooks in order to ensure they're as ready as possible to handle situations as they arise. So that said, having a team, this is what's important. Key component, communication means having more than one person. Talking to yourself in a room doesn't help. Also, we don't want heroes. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But this is why you really need a team to deal with incidents, and a ChatOps tool facilitates both parts of that. Now, full disclosure, I kind of wrote this talk before COVID. It didn't get talked too much until after COVID, but we built these features. Like, we were thinking about this because you need one single source of truth, as they say. Having a team ensures a lot of things. One of the things it ensures is no one person will burn out. That's another place with that no heroes, no single person thing comes in. But also it's so there can be a balanced approach to incidents. It's important to have diversity of thought as well as diversity of people on an incident team, even while using a playbook to ensure a singular execution. So the playbook ensures that you have a consistent execution. The people on the team build so that you have different ideas and understand how to execute on those roles. Also, it's important that everyone knows, understands, and internalizes their role. If the CEO jumps in and starts laying down instructions that aren't in the playbook, there should be a role that generally a lot of people call it the incident commander or the playbook commander that needs to correct their course. That could be the person who, is the admin. That could be the person who is head of marketing. That could be the person in accounting. Doesn't matter. An incident commander is someone who understands the playbook and how to execute it. And they will take their role and say, listen, CEO Bob, you need to go. You're not helping here. It's not your job to jump on Twitter. It's not your job to jump into GitHub. It's not your job to jump on AWS. Your job is to chill and make a statement when we tell you it's time for you to make a statement. And you need to empower people to do these things. Everyone needs to know what their responsibility is, execute it, internalize it. You'll notice that big thing that says no heroes. This has become an increasing thing in the DevOps culture. There are people who often, an outage occurs, they come running in at 3:00 in the morning, their pager goes off. I mean, not pager, who am I? That's ridiculous. Pager duty sends them a text. That's more realistic. And they get up and they're like, hey, I'm here. I know we have an outage and I'm going to do that one thing that I always do to fix it. And the company's going to give me a raise and a $100 Amazon gift card. Yay, everybody wins. I'm a hero. No, you're not. Because what's going on here is we're not actually seeing the issue get responded to. We're not seeing the symptom being handled. What we're seeing is someone putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. The arm's broken. We need to fix the broken arm. Band-Aid's not going to help. That's not a hero. That's just someone who's looking to push themselves forward. And it's not their fault. You shouldn't, if someone acts the hero, it's not always their fault. They believe that they're helping as much as possible. But if you have a good playbook with a good team with good communication, you make it so that no one would try to step into that role and try to put the Band-Aid on the broken arm. While we don't want to lay blame, once the playbook has been executed and everything's back to normal, it's often necessary to take a look and see what caused the incident. And assuming it was something internal, we need to remedy that issue. Again, no heroes. There are whole talks on the whole post-event analysis, no blame thing. And I don't think I need to go too much deeper here. But seriously, it's important to have a plan to discuss what worked, what didn't, what needs to be changed in the playbook after the fact, what needs to be resolved in the software itself, in our infrastructure, with our DevOps team and our observability stack, whatever it is, we need to take a look. Incident collaboration and resolution is a continuum. It's not a single stop situation. Like software, it's never done. We always need to be fixing. We always need to be doing better. Now here's the paid for part. This is what it looks like in Mattermost. So we actually use incident collaboration to organize our Hacktoberfest stuff. This is a playbook just like our playbook for our DevOps teams, except this one I can show you. Everybody has a role. Everybody understands what their role is. Everybody knows what they need to do. This is what it looks like. That's the salesy pitch that I've required to do. If you want to learn more, you can go to mattermost.com/incident collaboration. But I think you get the idea. Have a playbook, have a plan, move forward with it. Make sure everyone knows what it is. There's usually one part of that someone's missing, like, hey, we've got a playbook and we have a plan, but we forgot to tell everybody what it was or train them on it all. We never practiced. So when the actual thing happened, everybody was still in a panic. Okay, good. Or, hey, everyone knows what the role is, but at the same time, like, we didn't really communicate where the playbook was or where it would stay, and the integrations didn't work because we didn't test them. So, okay, so you have like you're halfway there. It takes time. It's a continuum. You have to learn things. You have to build things. So putting together things in Mattermost makes it a lot easier to stay focused on resolving the issue, or any ChatOps platform. Plugins create automated feeds that bring information from our systems from across the workflow together in one place. And a central platform keeps everybody on the team on the same page. In the case of Playbook, often literally. Whether there's an ad hoc response team for an incident, there's a dedicated SRE team using DevOps Command Center stuff, having it all in one place is the key to successfully ensure the stability of what your organization is working to deliver. Innovation drives us to build better technology. We want to be a part of innovating our teams to build better, safer, more observable systems. That's what DevOps is all about. Communication is the key to DevOps success. I say this in every talk, and still people are like, communication, that seems new. But the key is communication. People are always the point. It doesn't matter what software we build or what company we work for or what logos we wear. What matters is our ability to communicate with people and make people's lives better, whether that's through communication or through software. And software is just another form of communication. So in conclusion, communicate with your teams, make plans, make playbooks. When an incident happens, have a place to discuss it. Integrate as much as you possibly can, as tightly as you can, so that you have the information you need and you can act on it. And with that, thank you very much. And I'll just assume everyone's clapping.
Excellent. Thanks, PJ. That was super great.